Grobo Veradan, speech of an ancient tyrant. My people, sons of this nation, look around you. What do you see? Nothing. No food, water, essentials, tools, anything. Prices are going up, and the youth are sick. Daily we lose more and more of our brothers and sisters. Why? What has caused it? I say the gods. They're angry with us. And they came to me in my dreams and told me that I needed to bring forth justice against our tyrannical and oppressive rulers. We are the sons of this nation, and they mock us for it. They laugh and share ale and do treasonous actions against the gods. My brothers and sisters, I am Tamar Vea Ara Sinkra, son of Barik Ramadi Veora Sinkra, and I shall give you the power to usurp the false king and take his tyrannical rule to an end. What do you say, brothers? Let's go and fight for our lands and country. Grovalis! Grovalis is a bit of a term in Romania. If anyone says Grovalis, then it's kind of a radical. It's also like the growth of the nation is dependent on you, kind of thing. So yeah. Tamer Veara Sinkra, age 23, son of Bari, Ramadi Veora Sinkra, house of Sinkra, prophet of Galisa. Welcome, the first religion. Welcome to another video, and today we're looking at what if civilization start over. 2 human scenario, age of conflict. Now this here doesn't really tell much about what's happening, but what I can tell you is that the mid Iron Age collapse is upon us. Basically, the mid Iron Age collapse came from a disease. And that disease is still like around. We're going to see what it does to the many nations, many wars, many things. But basically, the disease is kind of like COVID and the Black Plague. Kind of similar to the bubonic, but the one thing that came in abundance with it was the ability to cause necrosis, and the necrosis would help animals to see it and eat the flesh of the victim, from where the flesh would turn into poop, and then if animal poop near a sediment, the wind would eventually bring the sickness into the town, infecting the local people or village. The villages would be the main epicenter of most of the deaths, because most of the deaths occurred in, yes, towns, but most of them weren't caused by just anything. It was caused by villages dying, people going there checking what's wrong and then getting infected, and then they were like, oh, I need to go back to my fatherland, I need to do something, and they die. But here is the plague. And we quickly see that not only will Italian be unaware of this, but everyone in Iberia is also unaware, except for this guy over here, who is seeing many of its people starting to see symptoms of necrosis. And eventually the disease hopped into this country, and we quickly see that the troops over here would all gain this disease, quickly rotting them away. And we could also see that over here in the Basque areas it's very prominent. During the Iberian conflicts, the disease would ravage around 20% of the total population, and the wars would ravage around another 20. So around 40% of the total population would die. Because of starvation, another 10 would die, so about half of the Iberian population would die. A strain actually developed that actually helped kill humans better, and it evolved directly to affect humans. The strain came from a mutation in one of its cells that eventually worked better and managed to go pretty much unnoticed by many people. Also, as we can see, the Ankaran military has contracted the disease and now has problems with its guys dying, but currently it's holding up pretty well. Over here in Montenegro and Macedonia and other surrounding areas in Italy and other areas, we see that the disease is quite deadly, although it doesn't do too much to the local populations, although it does manage to spread a lot further. In addition, Italia quickly closes off all borders and declares that any of its people that are infected are to be killed in the streets or wherever they stand, and any soldiers are to have anything on them. But at this point, it's already too late, as many hundreds of people have contracted the disease, and we quickly see that even in Carthage, the disease reaches it, and the effects are bad once they reach the first city. And we quickly see that all of Italy will eventually fall to this disease, but the nations would still prevail. But the biggest problem was when the disease managed to gain ground in mainland Carthage, from where it managed to not only expand but flourish, as many people made contact with each other, talked, and many more things. Eventually, we see that many of these people quickly went into other regions. Although the Moroccans, Berbers, and other people in the south did not have too much connection to the Carthaginians, we quickly see that the news of this whole thing would reach the Carthaginian military, who would stop anyone from coming into the capital. Even though that is the result of such things, we quickly see that it would not stop the spread, as the disease would eventually spread into these regions, and quickly after it later reached Libya, people who started to reach the border and were infected were just killed on sight. In Morocco and all of that, their thing is that on the border these 3 villages would be infected, although not much would be done about it. We quickly see that all of Montenegro would be infected. Slowly the disease would stop around Sparta, although in Athens' own regions it would flourish, all because of the very large trade culture that they have. Seeing the problems that are at stake over here, and seeing the stake of the worsening of the situation, Crete and Ankara would make a joint attempt at stopping this by killing anything that has its affection. Although we do see that happen, the only areas that it actually works in is over here, when we see that the Third Army's back rear in Ankara itself finally manages to get rid of its area. And we quickly see over here in Bulgoskaya, where the Neanderthals are accustomed to most of it, a separate strain evolves that is called strain Alpha SWD, and we quickly see that not only would this strain be very deadly towards the Neanderthals, but it would be very deadly towards the animals that they had, because the disease kind of jumped from one place to another. We also see that after this, many of the towns over here would fall because of the forces being able to actually live in these regions. Although we see that after Ankara reaches these regions, they stop because they recognize that there is another problem in this area. Also, Mesoa has gotten at this point a lot bigger. And yeah, they've been becoming very big. Although there's nothing much out here, they use the sands and the metal that's in them and the glass that they can make to make very fine glassware and other things, as well as tools and armor, which eventually helps them also build a lot of other things. But it also contributes to them becoming one of the strongest nations ever to exist in the ancient times. The strongest nation would have been, I think, the Legion C due to their massive navy at some point. Maybe the Carthagia, but I'm not sure. But over here in the Armenian Empire, we quickly see that the situation is pretty worseningly bad. And we quickly see that the capital is being hit hard. Although the king is managing to hold out, his forces across the country have at this point fallen over, but the rest of his forces manage a push out and quickly take over these two towns, also pushing back the rebellion, which is at this point very confident in its wins, so they kind of pulled away some troops, which was a very bad idea, by the way. And we quickly see that it's the bad idea because it's a bad idea because they kind of lost a lot of their momentum. And eventually, the position that had been regained by Armenia had eventually grown to the point that they would be able to retake almost the entire eastern parts of their territory. Although over down here they kind of just needed to take this and then push into these regions, they couldn't really push anywhere else in the south. But over in the north, the Battle of Raqqa would occur, and we quickly see that the battle, well, not Raqqa, this is Raqqa al-Benna, actually not al-Benna, it's Raqqa al, that's the name of this. Although the battle would be grand, it's not that grand, and eventually historians would remove it from an important part of the history of this world because, well, it didn't really impact anything except for the course of the next two battles, which eventually would lead to a battle which would actually kind of be very important. As we see that the Armenians are making progress in the north, over in the central parts they are making very little progress. They did manage to take a town over here, well, not a town but a village, and they're already knocking on the gates of this rebellion over here, the rebellion pocket. Down south they again launched another offensive, managing to up the gains over here, but eventually after reconsolidating these two into its territory and also this guy, Armenia was done playing, and it was like, yo, time to wrap this up. It gave all power to find a way to take the pockets out of commission. And we quickly see that the only general that kind of took the idea up of burning down the houses and all of that was actually listened to, and quickly kind of managed to take over one pocket and assimilate it very fast, because people didn't want to have their houses burned down. And we quickly see that over here, these areas which had previously been taken out, see that pockets of loyalists research into these regions, trying to take over these areas. One even manages to reconnect with the army over here, which connects up these guys and manages to take out a very large force in the south. Although they do that, this pocket manages to hold out only half of the area that it had, manages to hold out, and they become basically a front line to hold. Over here we see that this eventually falls with all three of its villages being taken. We quickly see that the rebellion is just cut to one little region as it was before over here. We quickly see that the forces of Katarik will come to the aid of the rebellion, and quickly we see that not only will they come to the aid of the rebellion, they will start an invasion over here. which Armenia was actually waiting for, because they already knew that they had to invade them and to eventually get over there. Although they did manage to push these guys back, it came at the cost of another rebellion pocket kind of managing to come back into existence. Well, partially this pocket managed to reignite the front over here and managed to almost retake one of its areas over here, but that's all they managed to do, except for, well, a bit of territory taken over here. But once the areas over here were had been accessed by the Armenians, they started to hit every village they could, trying to at least just take out as much territory as possible. Eventually, they reached the town of Raqqa. And the Battle of Raqqa would be one very grand battle. It would be known as one of the most grandest battles of the ages. And during that battle, it would see 5 different types of sieges, with siege tactics being used by the Armenians. Eventually, the last 5th would start to work out for them, and eventually it even worked. And we quickly see that the siege would be very successful, and they would take it all over. But during that, they lost a very large amount of their troops and had to stop their campaign over here. Qatarik had lost much of its army, and we quickly see that the regions it was trying to suppress the independence of, who wanted very much their independence over here, quickly decided to take this moment and seize the ability to take some areas over here. Now, you may ask, why is both Armenia and Qatarik in such a bad state while they were in better states before? It's partly because of Tehran's and Hormuzia's involvement. Also because West Yemen was kind of supporting the guys over here by giving them some bronze at some point. Also, we're going to look into this in the next video. But at this point, Europe is not in a good state. And we quickly see that's because not only will one Neanderthal nation fall, but more than one will fall over, with many of them actually just falling to the disease. Eventually, parts of the Sapien lands also fall with territory being unable to be claimed back into the nations. We quickly see that the largest amount of this evidence of, well, nations not being able to control the territories came from here, when Hungary kind of had contracted the strain, and we quickly see that not only did it contract the strain, it contracted the worst of the strains, and we quickly see that it lost a lot of its south. Montana lost that, and we quickly see that Italos lost a lot of its northern territories that it had in the mountains, which it had to kind of rectify and try and save, although the few villages that were out here would suffer very greatly. For Provence, they would see large amounts of their territory just being lost. They would not see the day of light ever again. These would fall. We quickly see that this guy would fall, and what would become known as the late mid Iron Age collapse would start to ramp up, as tons of territories, tons of nations would just fall, and eventually Hungary would also fall. Bavaria would also eventually fall, although it would be in a worse state though, as it managed to limp back only a bit from its fall. It did manage to hold on to some pockets of its lands, but that's all they managed to do. And over here we see that not only did Transylvania see a large fall, but most of the Danube regions to the north, well, kind of fell. And we can see that Bulgorskaya just saw itself fall as their capital kind of fell into disarray, and only a small part of it would manage to actually connect back up to the claimed regions, and we quickly see that due to this, Odessa would start to see the similar effects of the whole thing, with them losing so much territory that they would be crippled for years. Crimea only would lose only a very small bit of land and territory, where Odessa would continue to lose territory in bulk. And quickly we see that due to this, not only would Odessa start to fall under not only anarchy but complete ruin, but Kiev would start to see many problems arise, as one of its towns would become ungovernable and unclaimed, and we quickly see that its territories would start to see problems. In Ruskovia, we quickly see that anyone who had the disease would be stayed away from or would be imprisoned, and that's helped mitigate the damage, but still they would lose some territories among the Kievan borders and the Ukrainian borders, basically. We quickly see that even more Kievan territories would fall, although there would be only a small pocket left over here. The damage would be further severed when we quickly see that these regions would also fall, which would eventually cause some of these regions to again also fall, and these two nations would completely fall over, with this nation also falling over. For Poland, they would actually survive to their massive size, but their population would be severely hindered, as they were one of the nations that would take the bulk of the 2 million lost of the Neanderthal population. The most they lost was in here in the eastern areas and the southeastern areas, while in the western and southwestern areas, as well as the southern areas, they only lost a bit. And that was because not very many people of theirs lived there. Prussia would manage to survive, although over here in Essex and Cornwall, we quickly see that Cornwall would have the largest of the problems, as around one out of 5 people would die, and quickly even in Ireland, in the Irish Isles, we quickly see that the Irish Isle, we quickly see that many of these islands would, the middle parts of the island and the northern parts would eventually just be unable to recover, and eventually we even see in Scotland parts of the nation would actually fall over to anarchy and a bit of disarray. Although that would be the official thing that would be said, the true reason is because of the people were hungry and the disease kind of ravaged them. So a lot of the people just died and they couldn't hold on to the lands because they had no ethnic nor people to hold on to them. Also, in Essex, the reason why they would see problems arise is because in the small areas that they did have people or didn't have that many people, those areas would be kind of hit the hardest, with some of the regions kind of falling over. And as we can see, Belgium would be hit. Belgium would be hit very hard, and eventually it would recess into a very small nation. We see that this area of this nation would fall, and for the Neanderthals, another area would fall. Currently, we see that the many nations that would lose territory would kind of fall into very large anarchy, as most of these regions were very important. And we quickly see, not only would it be that, eventually Transylvania would fall to the disease, and some parts of Volgoskaya would start to even see it, the same thing, with parts of it being ravaged so badly that they would have to kind of pull back from the areas that were ravaged. For everyone up north, it was okay except for the Vanyans, who saw some of their border territories kind of fall over to the disease, and we quickly see that the Roscovians on the border would also fall over to the disease because of the winter time being so harsh. Many would kind of see bad things happen to them. it would be just a big show of, well, nothing. Over here, this nation would fall, with this nation also having a large problem with its northern areas falling over. For Abkhazia over here, we see that they would be split in two, with the two Abkhazian regions falling. Eventually the Caucasian areas would also fall. Although this nation would be very much hit in the northern regions and the eastern regions, they wouldn't see that much of a fall. And for the Ukrainian nation over here, they would only lose Mariupol. They would lose a bit territory over there. And we quickly see that Mariupol would be one of the only Kievan and one of the only nations of the world to not be hit that hard. And basically, they weren't hit so badly that they would kind of collapse in some parts and stay out together in other parts. They were only hit in one part very badly, and that was, well, over here, where they didn't have many people. For this nation, they continued to lose territory until they managed to consolidate most of their territories, and eventually they just decided to annex these regions, deciding that it would be better for them. Although Ukraine, well, actually not Ukraine, Crimea already had taken the town down here just because they wanted more territory in the future. We quickly see that the territory that they everyone kind of lost will be very important, because not only will it cause a lot of problems, but for the Baltic nation over here and this nation, they would just collapse. They would fully collapse. This nation would partially collapse in some parts. Some of the regions over here had no ability to defend themselves, and the added mix of Neanderthal and other sapien blood would not only do worse for the people, but it would only do very, very much bad stuff. We quickly see that Iberia would see the far worse things happen, as many of these nations would see very many problems, with the most largest being that the eventual fall of the capital and the nation as a whole over here. This nation would survive, although these regions that had the soldiers wouldn't survive. They would all fall. Basically, every part that had kind of soldiers of the Iberians in them would just fall. Portugal would be able to stop the war over here after winning a few battles, but the main thing that they would do is just stop the battles over here so that enemies would just fall. And we quickly see that the only enemy that would fully fall would be that one. This guy would suffer only a little and would manage to actually take some territory from the fallen nation over here. Now, I'm not gonna show what happened to many of these areas, partly because the disease is so gruesome, but basically I can only describe it as imagine a zombie apocalypse, but there are no zombies and everyone is rotting away actively. That's what happens. That's what's happening. And eventually, this disease will hit Carthagia so hard that not only will they see a large decline, but the middle of the country is so far hit and so far gone, they are unable to recover it. And at this point, we end the video on a very bad note for the Carthaginians and any other nation that surrounds the Carthaginians. But currently, the worsening conditions of this thing is very bad. Many nations are falling, and those nations that are falling are having large, very bad times trying to exist. But as you guys can see, this is the end of the video. I see you guys next time. Peace!